This podcast is brought to you by Legend Comics and Coffee in Omaha, Nebraska, located in scenic downtown Benson. They got a new location. It's absolutely gorgeous. Check it out. And by listeners like you. Go to Patreon.com/2headed nerd. Become a patron. Support this show.
Our story this week picks up where we left off last week.
Broadcasting from the ZIGGURAT at Omaha in caverns deep below the metro area, where we're always watching Saturday morning cartoons. It's our pleasure to welcome you to episode 737 of the Two-Headed Nerd Comic Book Podcast. I'm your head number one, the internet's Joe Patrick.
And I'm your head number two. My name is Matt Baum. It is time for another back issue show, and this time, our sentient Cosmic Longbox has us reading and reviewing comics adapted from cartoons.
After that, we'll set you up with our must-read picks for next week's new comics. But now, hope you had a sugary bowl of cereal for breakfast and you're ready for an all-ages appropriate episode because it's fucking cartoon back issue review time in the ZIGGURAT.
I see what you did there. That was fun. With the release of X-Men 97, we decided it was time to look at some cartoons that become comics. Sure, it was a comic first. I get it. But X-Men 97, the comic book we talked about last week, was specifically adapted from the cartoon. This is something that has happened since they've been publishing comic books. Let's get into it, Joe Patrick.
Since the dawn of cartoons, yes.
Yeah, if someone has a good idea that sells toys on a cartoon, you bet your sweet bippy they're going to make a comic book out of it.
Yeah,
and it's not always for the best. Tell us all about it, Joe Patrick.
That is true. So our earliest comic in the bunch is Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends number 1. It was a one-shot from Marvel Comics. It came out in 1981. It is written by a host of classic creators. Dennis Marks.
Oh, Dennis. Oh, my God.
Yeah. Pencils are by Dan Spiegel.
The legendary Dan Spiegel, yes.
Okay, the rest of these names are known, so really that joke only worked for the first two guys. Inks are by Vince Coletta. Colors by Bob Sharon. Letters by Jim Novak. Cover by John Romita Jr., a young, fresh-faced John Romita Jr. Current value, $75.
No shit.
Yeah, this book is,
wow.
This book is considered kind of a key.
Wow.
I mean, a minor key.
It's probably hard to find, too. I would guess they didn't print a whole bunch of these at the time, maybe.
I don't know, man. I remember seeing it at our shops, but
fair.
Who's to say? You can find one graded in CGC 9.8 condition for $525. Here is a bit of setup. This is pieced together from a number of places. As the gang heads to a costume superhero party on the Empire State University campus, Norman Osborn's plane crashes, reverting him into the Green Goblin. The Goblin's newest scheme is to take the formula that changed him and put it into the reservoir to turn all of New York into goblin-like creatures that will follow his rule.
Of course they will. They'll just be like, well, I guess we're all goblins now, but you were the first one.
What else is there to do? Yeah.
So right. I guess you're our boss. Let's go.
Right. It's like the lizard wanting to turn everybody into a lizard and thinking they'll all vote him president. This one shot adapted the cartoon's first episode, Triumph of the Green Goblin, which I found out in my research does not tell you how the Amazing Friends got together. That wasn't until episode 8.
So, they did 7 episodes of this, and they're like, hey, should we tell the kids why they're even hanging out, or
why? Yeah.
Oh, we didn't do that? We didn't do that. Oh, my God.
And you know what? I actually, this little bit that I cut and pasted from maybe mycomicshop.com or Fandom, it says Empire State University, but I remember specifically noticing in the book that it's not Empire State University. It's a different E word. And I went, wait a minute, that's not the place where Spider-Man goes to college.
Eastern State University is what they say.
Eastern State. I was like, that's not right. What?
Eastern State University Superhero Party.
Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends aired on NBC for 24 episodes from 1981 to 1983. This is the part that kind of blew my mind. It was considered to be a crossover / companion series connected to another show that was just called Spider-Man, which aired in syndication And they debuted on the exact same day,
Sure.
November 12th, 1981.
Why not? I mean, like, but think back in the day whenever they did this stuff, they'd be like, it's the Marvel Adventure Hour with Spider-Man and Spider-Man featuring Spider-Man. You know?
Yeah. I thought in my head, I already knew that just Spider-Man came first, and then they changed it to Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. But no. Blew my mind. This show stars already established characters, Spider-Man, obviously, and Iceman, and an original character, Firestar, who was created for the show when rights issues rendered the Human Torch unavailable. So it's going to be all dudes, but they couldn't iron out the legal rights to use the Human Torch. So they created Firestar, and now Firestar is a full-fledged member of the Marvel Universe. Did you know that Stan Lee didn't narrate the first season of the show?
I did know that. He came in later.
I did not.
He wanted to do it
faulty.
and like fought for it. And finally it was like, now, yeah, Stan Lee narrates everything from now on. Sorry.
I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean, the story is fine, I guess. It's very silly. The Green Goblin's plan is obviously very ludicrous. He wants to turn everyone into a goblin like him, even though everyone knows he's just wearing a mask. But when he's crazy, Norman doesn't understand that he's not wearing a costume. Norman thinks that he's actually a green monster man.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
It says that in the script.
No question.
Now, that has not been the case in any comic incarnation that I can remember. But on the show, he was convinced that he was going to put this stuff in the water and everyone was going to turn into a green ogre.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, and that was the thing with all these. Like, I love Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, but they really simplified a lot of stuff.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
They're just like, oh, he's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And they're like, oh, yeah, I get that. Go. You know, I'm like, okay.
It would have been interesting to find out, like, what would the formula actually do? Like, I think the formula is what drove him crazy. Like,
Right.
It's not like a Bruce Banner situation where he already had multiple personality, a lot of, intense emotional problems.
I don't know,
before
bro.
he became
Willem
the Hulk.
Dafoe was already messed up. You know, like it was there the whole time.
Maybe. I mean,
I don't know.
but I don't know. But so would it just made a whole city full of like super strong like housewives and toddlers and stuff?
Yeah, I don't
Who
know.
knows?
Maybe.
The issue ends with a 2-page spread talking about how great the executives at Marvel Productions are, which is just what every kid is dying to read.
Sure. It's almost like they sent these out to like the executives, and they were like, "This is how big of a hit it's going to be. It's going to be great." You know.
I don't know. Yeah. The art is serviceable. The page where Osborn's plane crashes and his Green Goblin personality emerges is really well done. I really liked that sequence of panels.
Yeah.
Things that I noticed, someone at the costume party came dressed as Mephisto.
Saw that too. And I'll tell you what, I demand I get this Spider-Man costume in my Spider-Man 2 game. I want this as a download with his name written on his shirt and skin around his eyes. Like, I totally need this.
Yeah, like the costume that a kid would wear, right?
Yeah,
like it's
I love it.
made out of plastic.
Yeah.
And it smells weird.
You know, I just love that Peter dresses up as Spider-Man, but in this
I know.
shitty
I thought
Spider-Man.
that was pretty
Why
funny,
not just
actually.
wear your Spider-Man costume and have people be like, "Whoa, you look great,
Too convincing,
dude."
bro. Too convincing. No. My immediate question about the Mephisto thing was, does the average person on the street in the Marvel Universe know who or what Mephisto is?
Dude, there's a moon dragon here too, so I don't know.
Yeah,
man.
I mean, it's weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that they're just fun little Easter eggs, but
Sure,
it's still very silly.
sure.
I must have had a copy of this as a kid because a lot of these panels are seared into my memory, especially the scene where Bobby transforms and his Captain America costume just kind of falls off of him. And like Firestar, like blocking the nitrogen bomb with her powers. Like it triggered a core memory in my mind when I read this. My main complaint about the art is that Spider-Man's webbing is always so weird and blobby when he shoots it out. Like, what's
Yeah.
going on?
I mean, I think I know what's going on, and I think the artist was a little over their head, basically.
Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, #1. It definitely does a great job representing its animated counterpart. I'm sure I loved this comic as a kid, but it doesn't really have anything going for it other than nostalgia. I'm going to give it a skim it because it was fun to read, but when you hold it up to scrutiny, it's
Yeah, I mean, like fun to read in like a weird artifact way. And like this is before we're going to get into a bunch of comics that are straight up aping the animated style of the cartoon and that it's from. This just looks like not a very good Spider-Man comic book. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's nothing animated about it. They're not mimicking the style or anything, because I don't think that it even occurred to anyone at this point. I'm going to give it a Skim It as well.
If you think about the look of the cartoon was aping Marvel house style anyway.
I suppose, but it was really stripped down as well. You know, I mean, there's just nothing other than Miss Lion here. Who I think they did a really good job on. But,
sure.
Yeah, this is Skim It. You know, I can't believe this is worth $75. Somebody paid $75 for this.
First comic book appearance of Firestar.
All right, dude. All the comics that I picked are some of the adaptations of older cartoons, but they're from a more modern time. I didn't pick anything south of 2000 because I wanted to look at how we're doing it today versus how we did it in the 80s and 90s. And I'm going to start with Space Ghost, #1 from DC. This was 2005. It goes for about $9 and a CGC 9.8, about 50. So it's not really easy to find, I guess. I don't know. Written by Joe Kelly, cover by Alex Ross, art by Ariel Olivetti, and letters by Richard Starkings. Here is your solicit. It's the real Space Ghost in a way that's never been seen before anywhere. In an all-out superhero action, the cartoon hero is the star of a 6-issue miniseries, Space Ghost, written by Joe Kelly, who worked on Superman and JLA at the time, with stunning painted art by Ariel Olivetti and painted covers by Alex Ross. Yeah. That sheds light on the mysterious figure's shadowy past. A young policeman joins an elite space force that turns out to be horribly corrupt. When his moral standards don't permit him to live a lie, our hero attempts to stop them at the cost of his own family and his soul. Witness the origin of one of the most beloved superheroes ever. Everybody knows Space Ghost, created by Alex Toth for the Hanna-Barbera CBS show back in the day. The show was called Space Ghost and Dino Boy. Now, not everybody remembers Dino Boy, and there's probably a reason why. Not important. Space Ghost would go on to have an amazing talk show, Space Ghost, Coast to Coast on Cartoon Network. If you've never seen it, you're a damn fool. Take some time, watch that show. It is amazing. I wasn't around for the 60s Space Ghost. I first probably saw these on the USA Cartoon Express, which showed all these old Hanna-Barbera superhero stuff, and they're all fantastic. Little did I know, while watching it as a kid, they never gave Space Ghost an origin on the show. He just never had one. He was just in a ship with Jan and Jace, two teens that just hung out with an adult male solving crimes in space, and a hilarious monkey named Blip. There you go.
Cartoon Express was where I first introduced. I mean, we weren't alive in the 60s. So
No.
In our formative years, cartoons from decades past were still in heavy rotation on television.
Everywhere, on every station. It was crazy.
Yes.
And they just tuck them in.
Flintstones, Scooby-Doo, Space Ghost, and USA Network. That was the place to go.
Oh, yeah. Because they would just tuck the new stuff
Herculoids,
in with the old stuff. And you could pad out 4-6 hours of cartoons. No problem. Right?
Galaxy Trio.
Oh, yeah. Here, Joe Kelly is writing Thad, which is, I don't think we ever learned what Space Ghost's real name either. Like, pretty sure this is
Thad.
all just from the mind of Joe Kelly, unless there's Alex Toth notes that I don't know about. But
isn't there canonically, I mean, I know it's not canon, but doesn't Space Ghost have a name as per Space Ghost Coast to Coast?
Well, I believe so, and I think it might be Thad, and that's probably why
I think it's Tad Ghostal.
That's probably why Joe Kelly did this as an homage to Space Ghost Coast to Coast, which was already on TV. So.
Right.
This Space Ghost is like a younger, sweeter version of Judge Dredd. He's a cop, and he believes in the law, and he's a good guy, and he's a huge mountain of a man. He's got a pregnant wife, perfect job. He believes in justice, but he believes in it so much so that, of course, he loses sight of the real bad guys. It's this very classic good cop refuses to turn dirty, so they killed his family, and then they killed him, and now he's a ghost of vengeance, hunting the space waves or whatever. It's all here, and Olivetti does an amazing job here. This is a point where he was really doing like a lot of painted stuff with digital backgrounds. And sometimes, like when it's in space, looks pretty cool. Other times when it's like cable and he's in New York, looks looks kind of weird.
I thought in this one he kind of laid off a little bit. I thought this was more on the actual art side than the, hey, let me drop a picture of the Grand Canyon in here.
No, it definitely was. But I also think when they were doing those like spaceship backgrounds and stuff, that's a little more forgiving, probably.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, as far as like the actual background of space is concerned.
Right.
But you've still got to draw a spaceship.
As opposed to Space Ghost standing in front of a deli, you know, or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Point of order, Space Ghost's name in Space Ghost Coast to Coast is Tad Ghostal, TADGHOSTAL, and he's got an evil twin brother named Chad Ghostal.
Isn't Tad short for Thaddeus, though?
I think it probably is.
I think it is, yeah. So there was something going on here, though, and I can't figure out what it was. Every once in a while, like this Space Ghost, who is not in costume. We don't meet that Space Ghost yet. This is just a dude, right? He's
kind of wearing like the under part of it, you know.
Yeah,
he's got with the red triangle.
Like he's going to put a cape on.
He'll put on a cowl, and then he'll have a ghost in the middle. Yeah,
but he's got a hair thing going on where there's these panels where he's just got this weird lightning strike bald spot, and I can't figure out if it was part of the story or a problem with the art. It's super weird, and it's only in like 3 panels. Everything else looks fantastic, though. Like,
I mean, you know, hair's hard to draw.
I guess. This is a fun read, though. Space Ghost, like I said, was originally created by Alex Toth, never had an origin. So Kelly and Olivetti, they get to just go to that classic cop refuses to go dirty business. And I loved the classic cartoon. It's kind of amazing that this character never had an origin. And this origin story, it's great. I own this miniseries. It is a ton of fun. I highly suggest reading this, giving it a buy it.
Okay, so I'm looking at the panels in question. It only happens on 2 pages, 3 panels.
It's weird.
And it almost looks like it's a coloring mistake. Like that portion was supposed to be filled in with like light.
Maybe,
you know, like when they draw in comics where in older comics when they draw black stuff and they want to show how light hits it, and
it's like a blue highlight. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I think that may have been what he was going for, but it dropped in the wrong color.
I'll buy that.
Something happened. This comic is great. I loved this miniseries. I love it a lot. And I wish we had gotten more. We did get another Space Ghost thing in like 2016 when DC did all the like grim and gritty Hanna-Barbera books, like Wacky Death Race and that shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, this one's great. It's a buy it for me. The art is gorgeous. I love Joe Kelly. I love Space Ghost.
Yeah.
Like this is an instant.
And I'll always take that
buy it for me.
That trope of like old silly character taken way too seriously. Like, let's do it.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work in a lot of cases, but Space Ghost is cool.
Yeah.
He's mysterious.
Totally.
He's a crime fighter. You know, he's like the Phantom in space. And
yeah, exactly. That's exactly what he is.
Like you can get away with a serious take on Space Ghost.
Sure.
But you probably couldn't get away with like a similar take on something like, say,
the Herculoids.
Oh, sure. Well, Herculoids.
Sea-Lab,
maybe
you totally
Herculoids
could. Sea-Lab, you totally could. It's just people working in a base undersea. You know, like.
But you know what I mean. There are some cartoons
the
where
Herculoids
it's like, okay,
are
I don't
tougher.
need a serious version of this.
The Hercules didn't dress so cool. You know.
Yeah, I mean that's true. But I mean, they had real stakes, man. They were fighting to survive.
They had a character that went, wow, wow. Oh, by the way,
Gloop and Gleep.
New Space Ghost comic book coming from Dynamite in April. So watch for that. There you go.
Dynamite is all in on the cartoon comic book revival trend.
Anything they can license, they're down.
I'm counting the days until I hear something about Silverhawks because it's going to happen.
Probably. Thundercats is selling, so yeah.
Another favorite of young Joe Patrick was a cartoon about the Central Organization of Police Specialists. Yeah, that's right. I'm talking about cops.
Cops, Central Organization of Police Specialists. Fighting crime in a future time. Protecting Empire City from Big Boss and his gang of crooks.
This is Cops #1 from DC. It's from 1988. This predates the Cops reality show on Fox. It's written by Doug Minch. It's got pencils by Pat Broderick. Inks by Pablo Marcos, colors by Gene D'Angelo, letters by John Costanza. This is where my mind turned inside out. Current value unslabbed, $4. Nobody wants this comic.
Well, yeah.
Current value in a CGC 9.8 condition, $310 goddamn dollars.
Get out of here. Oh my
I swear,
God.
it's what I saw.
That is ridiculous.
Here's your description. Fighting crime in a future time. It's the debut issue of Central Organization of Police Specialists, or COPS. Big Boss brings the mad Dr. Bad Vibes into his criminal organization in the 38-page The Case of Cops File Number 1 dash Bad Vibes, which is a terrible story title. Featuring Buzz Bomb, Scratch, Squeaky Clean, Misdemeanor, Berserko, Turbo Two-Tone, Mirage, Rock Crusher, Buns McBoom Boom, Bulletproof, Bullseye, Barricade, Mace, Sundown, Bowser, Blitz, Highway, Long Arm, Hardtop, and Mainframe.
Wow.
That's the entire cast.
Oh, yeah.
Give or take. I didn't fact check it. A little bit of background. Cops ran for 65 episodes in 1988. They all came out in 1 year.
That is too many. That's too,
I mean,
they
turned Cops on. They turned Cops on one day in March and then turn it off again until December.
Yeah, these poor animators. Oh my God.
Yeah. The show was based on Hasbro's 1988 line of action figures called Cops and Crooks, which were designed by comic book artist Bart Sears, and it shows.
Big time.
The series focused on a team of highly trained police officers tasked with protecting the fictional Empire City from a group of gangsters led by the Big Boss. In 1993, this I thought was funny. In 1993, the series was shown in reruns on CBS Saturday mornings under the new name Cyber Cops, due to the 1989 debut of the Fox Cops reality show.
They couldn't have the right because it was C.O.P.S. Yeah.
Well, but I mean, the Fox show is just Cops.
I guess you're right.
Police,
I don't know.
This show is an acronym.
That seems bizarre. Other than Cops, it's just like
maybe they just
we'll sue you to hell. You know, like
maybe
we may
they
not
just
win,
didn't want any. They didn't want any trouble. You know?
Yeah, I could see Fox being real jerks about it. But easy to confuse for the kids, too. You know, like one show features police hamming it up for the camera, abusing mental health patients and minorities, and the other features superhero cops.
Right. Abusing due process.
Yeah.
Yes. So much like Spider-Man and his amazing friends, the origin of the Cops team did not happen in the first episode of the cartoon. This issue is an adaptation of the 8th and 9th episodes of the cartoon. It was a two-parter.
Weird.
Which told the origin of BP Vess and the Cops team. The dialogue is awful. All of the villains have some sort of annoying affect to their speech, like Rogue's accent on crack, but for a dozen different characters.
You remember the cartoon did that, too. Like everyone.
Oh, I know, but reading it seemed worse. You know what I mean? Like reading it's just made it more
You might want to revisit
taxing.
this cartoon.
No, look, I understand that it probably doesn't hold up.
No,
I have no illusions.
No.
Vess, who is an honest and incorruptible lawman, wants to violate the civil liberties of everyone in the city to stop Big Boss. The mayor is totally cool with it.
Yeah.
He actually says to the mayor, "We don't have time for warrants, Mr. Mayor. We're doing it anyway."
Well, I mean, like, it was the epitome of that. Like, he's a hard-hitting cop that gets stuff
He's a
done.
cowboy. Yeah.
You know? Damn it.
He's a man of action. Right. Speaking of action, the issue has a ton of it, but somehow it drags on and on and on. The building the team portion, like the origin of Cops, I feel like ran for how many pages did I say this was?
I mean, it's 26, right?
38 pages.
38 pages.
I think the origin of the Cops team, the building the team part, ran for at least 20 or 30 of the 38 pages.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'll tell you
That's
what.
how it felt.
Kids must have had like a different attention span back there because these word balloons are thick and they are like so much reading that we don't need for this. Come on.
Typically, I am a fan of Pat Broderick. I think he's an unsung or an underrated artist from the 1980s. His art here, though, is rough.
Yeah.
There are moments where it looks okay, you know, pretty good. But then there are others with like insanely distorted faces or characters that seem so disproportionate compared to their surroundings. It's like he was trying so hard to stick to the Bart Sears like look, but he just couldn't wrap his mind around.
Yeah, I agree. I think he was trying to capture the feel of the animated show, which is a weird looking show. It's weird. Like,
oh yeah, no, the characters do look kind of grotesque.
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe he just couldn't do it. Or the other side of this is like, haha, Pat, you drew the short straw. You have to draw cops.
You have to draw cops. Yeah,
2 days to get us the finished project. Go.
Yeah, I mean, in the show, yes, the characters are all grotesque, but they all make sense together within that world.
In the whole world, yeah.
In the comic translation, though, like Pat Broderick just couldn't make it work most of the time.
They should have called Bart Sears and said, Bart, just do it.
They really should have. Like, what was he in 1988? Though he's probably drawn Justice League Europe,
he was
hitting in the big time.
I never have to work again. Cops sold. It's got a cartoon. Like the toys are out. I'm gonna be a billionaire.
I mean, dude, he was just like a graphic designer for Cops. It's not like he created
punched
it.
Stan Lee in the face and knocked his cubicle over and told everybody to fuck off.
My shorts, Matt Groening. Hot punch. Yeah. I loved this show as a kid. It's like Matt said, it's basically high-tech superheroes in the future.
It's G.I. Joe.
Like,
it's G.I. Joe if they were cops.
It's future G.I. Joe.
Yeah,
right.
They're all specialists. They're all from a special place, and that themes their costume.
Right. But not even nostalgia could redeem this turd. It's really terrible, and I'm sure the show doesn't hold up either. I'm giving this a leave it. I'm reading it was a chore.
Yeah, this is pure garbage, and it's from that time where they were just putting out toys, putting out cartoons as an ad for toys that they're trying to make money on, and they just greenlit everything. They greenlit everything because there was money to be made. Cops is one of those things that happened to get greenlit. Sorry, Bart.
Well, yeah.
Wish you would have made more money on it. This is completely leave it. It's just trash.
It's crime fighting time.
Every once in a while, an artist makes a cartoon just to make a great cartoon. It's a crazy idea, I know. But Samurai Jack is, to this day, one of my favorite cartoon series by one of my favorite animators, Gennady Tartakovsky. He got famous doing Dexter's Laboratory. I'm sure you've heard of it. Samurai Jack was his follow-up. It was much more serious, and it was kind of like his love letter to David Carradine's Kung Fu, but with a time-displaced samurai wandering around in the future, trying to get back home and righting wrongs. I'm talking about Samurai Jack #1 from IDW from 2013. This is written by Jim Zub with art and cover by Andy Suriano, letters by Sean Lee. This would have been the first true adaptation. Tartakovsky did a DC special that was basically the first 2 episodes of Samurai Jack in comic book form, right?
Yeah, he wrote that, and then somebody drew it in his kind of style.
Yeah. Here's your solicit. Cartoon Network's hit animated series is back at IDW. The legendary samurai known only as Jack is stranded in a strange future ruled by the demonic wizard Aku. His quest to return back to his past has tested him many times, but now the stakes are higher than ever. Can an ancient relic known as the Rope of Eons finally take him home? Writer Jim Zub of Skull Kickers and Street Fighter. I don't know what Street Fighter he did, but all right. And artist Andy Suriano, character designer on the original Samurai Jack TV series, which is
there you have it.
Probably why this looks so kick-ass. Begin a new era of samurai adventure. Suriano would go on to do a bunch of comic work, and it all looks great. That dude is just amazing.
Yeah.
They kind of just capture this lightning in a bottle perfectly, though. The story moves very, very fast. You got a 2-page recap. Samurai Jack sent, from the past to the future by evil Aku, whatever. Now he's trying to do this thing, get this rope, go back in time. Got it. 2-page opening. Boom. We're in a gladiator story, just like that. And the gladiators that he ends up fighting, they're all these like loose homages to superheroes. My favorite one was Headclaw, the Stabbist, which was Wolverine, but he had 3 claws that came out of his head. So he would just run and jump and try and stab you with his head. And he kept going, I'm the best at this. Damn it. Zub does a really excellent job giving the story the same feel and the same pace. it's hyper serious. Like you get a lot of Jack posing. He doesn't talk very often and stuff. And like the scenes of him thinking about what he's doing. And then there's high cartoon fun that comes in, just like the show. Suriano, though.
Yeah, I mean, because like there's stuff like it's a high stakes samurai battle, but then there's also stuff like Robutinsky the butt blaster.
Right. And he's got a gun that comes out of his butt.
Goofy.
Yeah. He turns around and shoots a cannon out of his butt. It's great. Kids love that shit. Suriano is so good at this, though. The first pages after the recap where it's just like Jack in the desert and there's this like stippled wind that's blowing in front of his face. It's just gorgeous. I would buy that page. Absolutely beautiful. The colors are amazing. The design of the gladiators are great, but this is the guy that like designed these characters for the cartoon. So it almost doesn't count. He's so good at it. Zub and Suriano just do an incredible job capturing the action and the humor of the cartoon while still maintaining the style and really not losing any of the motion. I find that when we look at a lot of cartoon adaptations, they just become frozen comic book versions of the cartoon on the page. But this really felt like it moved just like Samurai Jack. The action was very animated. This guy is a cartoonist. No question. And he's great at it.
I mean, you can tell that that guy's no stranger to like drawing storyboards.
Oh, for sure.
He knows how to illustrate figures in motion and make it interesting.
Yeah. This comic book does a job, though. After reading it, I immediately wanted to start a rewatch of the entire Samurai Jack series. I'm giving this a buy it. This was so good.
I've seen a couple episodes of Samurai Jack, but I just never had the chance to get into it. I think it came out. What year did it come out? I had just moved out to my first apartment. I was working a lot. I had just started at the comic book store. I was working 2 jobs. So I just never caught Samurai Jack. And I know it's beloved. I know Tartakovsky's work, and
it's incredible. It's like start to finish.
I think he's a phenomenal talent, and I've liked all of the things that he's done that I've seen. Primal, that's out. That's most recent, is just an incredible piece of work. But this comic on its own, even without the context of the cartoon to kind of fill me full of whatever feelings, is still very, very good. The art's fantastic. It matches the tone of the show. The writing is funny, but also serious when it needs to be. Like, it felt like the cartoon.
Yeah, exactly.
In a way that some of these other adaptations kind of fall down. Like they try, but they don't really get it.
Just feel like a comic book. Yeah.
Right. As a comic, I did think the colors were a little too saturated. Like that might be, I'd have to look at the show. Like I said, I'm not an expert, but I thought it could have it could have been better with a slightly more muted color palette, but it's a small problem. It's a small complaint. Otherwise, the art is fantastic. I did love that, like you said, that kind of woodcut almost looking page, like title page.
The desert scene. Yeah.
Yeah, where he's after the origins recap when he's like coming out of this. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a gorgeous page.
Man, it's beautiful.
This is a buy it for me. Even if you've never seen the cartoon, this is just a great comic book. I may have been all about cops in the mornings in 1988, but at night, my heart belonged to Alf. Next up is Alf #1 from Marvel, the Star Comics imprint, which they used to put it on the cover. It's not on the cover, but it's on the inside. It's written by Mike Gallagher. Pencils are by Dave Manick. Inks and colors by Marie Severin. Letters are by Grace Kramer. Current value of this one is $15. CGC 9.8. 225.
Get
People love
out of
Alf.
here. God.
I remember seeing, I think the Alf comics are unexpectedly sought after, kind of like the Sonic comics were. We remember when we found out the Sonic comics were so in demand. Not quite as in demand as Sonic, but you know what I mean.
Sure.
Here is your description, again, cobbled together from a couple of sources. It's a big problem when Alf's spaceship gets accidentally picked up by the garbage men in At Your Disposal. Then Alf goes along on the family's ski resort vacation, but struggles with having to stay indoors and out of sight, especially when Brian is having bully problems in Snow Skin Off My Nose. And in Play Misty For Me, Alf tells Willie and Kate about his glory days as an orbit guard on Melmac. Here's some background for you. Alf, the animated series, sometimes known as Alf on Melmac. I don't remember anybody calling it that, but
nobody called it that.
Hey, look, man, I'm just telling you what I saw.
It took place on Melmac. I'll give it that.
It did, yes. It was a 30-minute Saturday morning cartoon. It was a prequel to the live-action sitcom. It aired on NBC for 26 episodes from 1987.
It had a ridiculous doo-wop music intro.
Yes, I remember that Melmac was very kind of obsessed with 60s and 50s and 60s pop culture.
Yeah,
it was very
big time.
Yeah. As I said, it's a prequel to the live-action show. It depicts Alf life back on his home planet of Melmac before it exploded. Since the character is called Alf on the live-action show, and it was a nickname, an acronym for alien life form, it's never used in the animated series except for in the title. So somebody was paying attention to continuity. Instead, they call Alf by his real name, which of course is Gordon Shumway. This is not exactly an adaptation of the cartoon. The Alf comic did double duty as an adaptation of both the live-action show and the cartoon. Every issue had a split where they'd do some live-action stuff and then some cartoon stuff.
Sure.
All three stories in this issue are completely ridiculous, but I thought that it was in a fun and kind of zany way. Credit where it's due. Mike Gallagher's dialogue matched Alf's tone and voice perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
I read it in Alf's voice.
I mean, they're just writing it like old school Hollywood insult comic, you know? I mean, there it is.
Right, yeah.
So.
Like all content geared towards children in the 80s, there are a ton of references to shit that their parents and grandparents would understand, like the Dave Clark 5 and Jimmy Cagney. Why? Why, guys? Who are these references for?
They did that on, they did the same thing on the cartoon as well. The cartoon is legitimately genius. I loved it. Loved it. The live show is absolutely forgettable and unfunny.
I mean, it's dumb.
And they made a movie about how the creators were trying to get fired and literally thought about killing themselves to get away from it. So,
oh my,
Permanent Midnight was the movie.
That's about Alf.
That is about the creators of Alf. Yes. And how insane it drove them and how they were brilliant comedy writers and they got this job and they're like, we don't want to do this. And they wrote the dumbest thing they could trying to get fired. And it was a hit. And they were just like, God, America is even dumber than we thought. It's worse. And so they kept writing it and making it as old timey and stupid as possible. And America was just like, we love it.
I mean, because it's the 80s and kids love a talking creature.
They just puppet. That was it. It could have done anything. Yeah. It could have opened its mouth and made fart noises and it would have been a hit.
Yeah. The art in the comic is fantastic. It matches the art style of the cartoon in both the live action and the Melmac scenes, which I thought was a smart idea. Like in the live action scenes, Alf looks like Alf looks on the cartoon.
Sure.
So. The colors are really lovely and vibrant. Marie Severin, of course, is a legend. She did a great job here. She also inked it. And so I think the book looks really great. It's definitely a book for kids, but I still had a ton of fun reading Alf #1. I was going to give it a skim it, but the more I think about it, the more I enjoy it. I'm upgrading this to a buy it. I legitimately had a good time reading Alf #1.
I never read any of these comics. Like I said, I loved the cartoon. I even bought the Alf cards from the cartoon and shit. And I was hoping that's what the comics would be because we got the live action. I don't need to read a comic book version of the shitty live action Alf. Show me Melmac. Show me Booyah Baseball. Show me all the dumb shit they used to do. You know, that's hilarious. And that's what I was hoping for here. And it's just not here. I can't. The art looks great. I totally agree. I can't give it any better than a skim it. And I'm just surprised that anybody wanted to read more about Alf and his fucking family in comic book form. And give me a break. Just give me the alien stuff. Let's do that. Have fun with it. Go nuts. You've got the artists to do it. So I don't know.
Perhaps future issues had skewed more heavily towards Melmac.
I hope so, because I can't see this sticking around too long if it was all like this.
It ran for 50 issues.
That's insane.
Yeah, the Alf comic was a hit.
One of my favorite, I like almost kind of like underappreciated culty, not underground, but culty cartoons of the 90s had to have been Gargoyles. I loved Gargoyles. It was a Disney cartoon. It originally aired on the USA Network. Later, it moved to like Disney Toon. The series was about a group of gargoyles transported to the future, sort of Samurai Jack, if you will, that turn to stone by day, but they protect New York City by night. It ran from October 24th, 1994 to February 15th, 1997. And Keith David was the voice of Goliath. And I think that's why that character was so badass. Loved him.
And Jonathan Frakes was the villain.
Yeah.
It was Thanatos.
Ton of great voice talent on this
Counselor
show.
Troy was the femme fatale. Like it was, voice cast was stacked.
Yeah, they spent money on the show. Like it was really well written. It was darker in tone. I mean, it was still geared to kids. It wasn't, but people died, you know. This was sort of another, I think, take on Batman, the animated series, where they said we can tell kind of adult stories from this same, you know, and it's very Batman-esque as it is. So you
can do a cartoon for children and not make it stupid.
Yes, and that's exactly what it was.
Like respect their intelligence.
It did not insult you like a lot of other, like cops possibly did. So, of course, Dynamite had to give us Gargoyles #1, bringing it back in 2022. 32 pages for $3.99. It goes for $5 to $7 ungraded. CGC 9.8, $70. This is written by series creator Greg Weisman.
Who has gone on to do many fabulous things like the Young Justice cartoon.
Oh, yeah.
He's written many comics. Greg Weisman is great.
Cover by David Nakayama, art by George Kambadias, and letters by Jeff Eckelberry. Here is your solicit. Series creator Greg Weisman and illustrator George Kambadias reintroduce the Manhattan Clan, a family of gargoyles at full strength, though modern New York City is full of attractions and distractions, and each member of the clan has begun to go their own way, but their bonds will be tested when nefarious factions from all across the world attempt to steal the rarest, most precious of possessions, an unhatched gargoyle egg. So none of that's really happening here yet. I think this is probably like the first overriding story, perhaps. I will say there's a recap for new readers, and it also helped like old guys like me who couldn't remember all the details of the show, because the show had pretty thick continuity. It did not mess around.
So thick, in fact, that somebody like me, who was only an occasional viewer of Gargoyles, felt completely lost, because this issue takes place not only well after the cartoon show, but after many things have happened in the lives of all of these gargoyles.
True, like stuff that happened in the slave labor graphics comic book, which is like also
they're some of them are married, some of them are having babies.
There's a zombie,
there's robot gargoyles.
There's a zombie cyborg and a robot gargoyle.
There's like a human man that got turned into a gargoyle, or he's not a gargoyle, but he's some other kind of thing.
No, there's a mutate, but that's from the cartoon.
He's the mutate, yeah. But I didn't recognize him because I only seen a handful of episodes.
That's fair. And I think that might be where this falls down a bit. Look, the cartoon, you had to watch it. If you were going to do it, you had to watch the whole thing. You couldn't just turn it on and it's a one-part adventure like G.I. Joe, where like, you know who they are. They're fighting Cobra, whatever.
Or Batman the Animated Series. Every episode was a one-shot for the most part.
Yes. This literally told the story of their lives. And I like that this one picks up with, okay, we know you've been paying attention because you're a fan. That can also hurt it. If you're not a fan, it's rough. There's a lot that is dropped here. I thought Kambadias' art is great, though. Like, perfect for the animation style. He is super talented. And another one of those artists that seems like when they work on licensed stuff, no problem. Whatever you need. They can flip the switch and do literally whatever you need as far as that animated style. He's great. The colors in this are just glowing. The opening scene where the gargoyles are like coming after the crooks in the car, and the police sirens and lights are like bouncing off the glowing buildings. It looks fantastic. Really great action, but there's not a lot of action in this book, honestly.
There's a lot of reunion.
There's a lot of reunion
stuff
and
getting the gang back together.
Yeah, and reintroduction. Weisman takes his time resetting this world for the gargoyles for new readers, and it is nice for old fans. There's a very Batman meets TMNT element to the story that anyone's going to be able to relate to. It worked also very well for the darker themes of the cartoon. And I like that they're just sort of continuing here without apologies. It's probably not real helpful to people like Joe Patrick, who are only part-time viewers.
I'm afraid not.
I'm giving it a buy it. I really liked this.
That's totally fair. And that's why I'm giving it a skim it, a strong skim it.
Sure.
Just because, like, this is not a bad comic by any means. I enjoyed reading it, but I was so confused.
Yeah.
Because, like, I didn't even know, I haven't seen enough episodes of Gargoyles to know that the cop lady and Goliath got together. Like, I didn't know that was a thing.
I think that happened in season 3. So, yeah.
And so when she laid a smooch on Goliath, I was like, hey, oh, whoa.
I admit, I totally forgot that there was any Beauty and the Beast shit going on here. Like, I totally forgot.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a bad thing. It's just like, I just didn't have, I wasn't equipped.
Right.
For the sheer amount of continuity that Weissman reintroduces in this comic. Like Matt said, if you are a fan of Gargoyles, this is going to be your jam. The art is great. The writing is great. For a casual fan, though, I'm just saying, hey, wade in gently.
Sure.
Dip your toes in. See if you like where it's coming from. And then you might need to do some research, but it's a skim it for me, a strong skim it. I knew in my heart of hearts that this was not the first Gargoyles comic. In fact, there was a Gargoyles ongoing series from Marvel Comics that launched in 1995. Mm-hmm. Drawn by Amanda Connor, almost the entire run. Drawn by Amanda
That's
Connor.
Why it looks so
Amanda
good.
Connor.
Yeah, I own those. Yeah. They're great.
I mean, it's a gorgeous. The cover to issue 1 is drawn by Joe Madureira.
Yeah,
like it's probably one of the best looking cartoon comics I've ever seen. But Gargoyles is awesome. And I've always meant to go back and watch more. And this kind of like stirred up something in me that I like.
You would dig it, man. You would dig it.
I know. I know that I like the show.
The continuity is so good that like you would totally dig it. It hurts here, but I also like that they're just like, look, no apologies. We're doing this for the fans. That's fun.
In contrast to Batman the Animated Series, which was on regular network television, Gargoyles was on cable, and it started a little bit later in my youth. You know, I was well into high school, and so I just didn't have the opportunities to watch it as I did with Batman, and so I didn't have that connection. But
nobody cares about
like
your excuses. Nobody cares. You should
That's why
failed
people
out of
listen
college.
To the show.
Like
they want to hear about the life of the internet's Joe Patrick.
You should have failed out of college like me because you were smoking weed and watching Gargoyles when you should have gone to class. All right.
I failed out of college because I was not smoking weed and watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Our stories are sort of parallel. Well, you know, it had to happen. My final book of this week's show is The Batman Adventures #1. It's from DC Comics. The year was 1992. It's written by Kelly Puckett, an underappreciated writer that I love.
I love Kelly Puckett.
Pencils are by Ty Templeton. Inks are by Rick Burchett. 2 artists underappreciated that I also love.
Also,
colors are by Rick Taylor.
Probably why this book looks as good as it looks.
Letters are by Tim Harkins. Current value of this first issue is $20 unslabbed. In CGC 9.8, $110. I cannot believe that this comic book is worth less than the Cops comic book.
Yeah, it shocks me a little bit.
eBay is broken.
Well, it's also probably Cops at the time where shit was returnable, so it didn't sell, and they sent it back, and it got pulped.
I don't know, man.
So,
who's to know?
They're on magazine newsstands where they didn't sell, so they just went pulp it. Thanks.
I mean, this would have been much more readily available in the direct market. Comic shops would have been lousy with it.
Yeah.
Here's your description. The Penguin publicly renounces crime and seemingly overnight becomes one of the most philanthropic men in the entire city. Batman knows that he's working an angle. He just needs to figure out what it is. Batman, the animated series, aired on Fox Kids from September 1992 to September 1995 with a total of 85 episodes. I don't believe that counts the ones that came later, like when they changed titles and it became, the Batman and Robin Adventures and that kind of thing.
No, I bet it's not. This is just the animated series.
I think those are counted separately.
Yeah.
It was hailed at the time as a groundbreaking superhero show. It received praise for its writing, its art design, its voice acting, its orchestrated soundtrack, and modernization of its source material. The acclaim led to multiple Daytime Emmy Awards as well as a Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Animated Programming. We have discussed this on the show at least a couple of times. There's this weird regional discrepancy where for some people in America, the first episode they ever saw was the episode with the Red Claw.
Yeah.
And it aired in prime time on like a Friday night or a Saturday night. And, but really the first episode is on Leather Wings, the Man-Bat episode.
This is the best serialized cartoon ever made. Still, I don't think there's an argument. It changed everything.
The only argument I will accept is if a person wants to judge the entire Tim-verse as one. So the Batman show, the Superman show, and the Justice League show. If you want to count all of that as one thing,
I'm saying this cartoon.
I mean, yes, it is the benchmark for superhero cartoon adaptations.
Without question.
It's the cartoon that has led to decades of guys like us saying, how hard is it to just make a good cartoon based on Spider-Man or whoever, fill in the blank. Kelly Puckett absolutely nails the vibe of the cartoon with this story. Like I could imagine scenes from the comic playing out on my TV as though it were an actual episode.
You can hear the music in your head while you read it. It's great.
Unlike a lot of the cartoon comics we read this week, this is an original story. It's not based on an episode of the show. The Penguin's caper is hilarious. The best part is that only the rich idiots in Gotham are buying into the con.
Sure.
And anyone with half of a brain like Batman and Commissioner Gordon are like, are you kidding me with this shit?
This has got to be like what the rest of the world feels like when they look at Elon Musk, right? And we're just like, what do you billionaire shitheads see in this moron?
How do you guys not understand what's happening? Right. Like there's a scene later on where Gordon's got to present an award for like most philanthropic citizen in Gotham, and he looks at it and it's like Oswald Cobblepot. Oh, and they also never call him Oswald Cobblepot. It's always the Penguin.
Yeah, they literally call him
his award is engraved the Penguin.
Right.
I especially love the scene where Batman knocks the power out in this building, and he sneaks up to a bunch of goons, and they're all like, I think I heard something. I don't know. There's something moved out of the corner of my eye, and behind them, Batman says, maybe it's Batman. And the crooks are like, yeah, maybe it's.
It's great. Yeah, it's great.
So good. The art by Templeton and Burchett is incredible. We already said that. These guys are true masters, not only of the animated style, but of styles of their own. Rick Burchett is a phenomenal artist that did The Question and The Huntress miniseries written by Greg Rucka, which we both love. Ty Templeton has drawn a billion things that you've probably never heard of or don't remember. He did that Santa Claus Delivers Coal to Darkside thing in that Christmas comic we reviewed a couple months ago. The art matches the style of the show perfectly, but you can still see Ty Templeton's own style shining through, which is something I really liked.
Yeah, definitely.
Look, when it came to cartoon comics, DC was the undisputed king of adaptations for almost 30 years. And it didn't hurt that they had a killer lineup of properties that were evergreen hits with kids and adults like Looney Tunes, Scooby-Doo, Teen Titans, and of course, Batman the Animated Series. And Batman Adventures is the granddaddy of them all. It was the one that made fans of all ages sit up and take notice and say, hey, guess what? You can make a comic book based on a cartoon, and it can also be good.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to pander. It can just be them celebrating how good the show is, right?
Yeah. This is a huge buy it. It's a perfect reflection of Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of notes, to be perfectly honest, because you said just about all of it. This comic book, like I own this run because it was so good, and I don't own runs of cartoon adaptations of comics. This was a really good run of Batman stories told in that animated style, period. Ty Templeton is incredible, and he was so good at stuff like this. Like, he would go on to work on a bunch of Bongo comic stuff, Bart Simpson comics.
Yes, he did a lot of cartoons
for years. He was that guy, right? Because he was so good at this. This is a massive buy.
Ty Templeton occupies that same space in my brain that like Roger Langridge occupies, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Guys that just love doing books based on beloved properties,
Right.
but you can tell that they are so talented that their artwork kind of transcends what they're doing.
You want a Popeye comic book? Here's a masterpiece. You know, just
right.
like, oh my
or those
God.
Muppet comics that Roger Langridge drew are incredible, but he is so good. I don't want to say that Roger Langridge is too good for the Muppets, but he's so good that he could draw literally anything and it would be beautiful.
He knows what he like Ty Templeton. He's that guy. He knows what he can do. Yeah. He can do that job. And it's a different job than coming in with your style and, you know, drawing a book like Invincible or something. Right.
Yeah.
We love that book. It looks great, but it's very much stylized because that's what that artist brought to the book. Guys like Roger Langridge show up going, okay, if we're going to work on this, we got to study this. We got to do it this way. We got to make it look a certain way. And Templeton's that same dude. The eye for details, it's just a totally different job.
We are embracing what works in the art style of the source material, and we are replicating it and enhancing it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Arguably, I mean, just as difficult as maintaining your own style, maybe harder because of all the research that goes into it. I don't know.
For sure. Yeah. Kelly Puckett, for those who don't immediately notice the name, Kelly Puckett went on to do Batgirl, the Batgirl run that Matt and I rave about every single chance we get.
The best run of Batgirl there is, period. The best Batgirl run ever.
He's a great writer.
Bring out of this world excitement into your house, kids. Own the most fantastic toy of all. Great Garloo by Marx.
Our final book came out just a few weeks ago, and I wanted to cover it so bad. Joe fought me, but
I was dreading this. Like, literally, I was like, I can't believe I have to read this.
So some setup first. There is a toy company called Nacelle, and Nacelle has gone around and picked up the rights to a lot of older, weird toys. The biggest one here being the Great Garloo, which was sort of this failed toy thing from the late 50s, early 60s. And people remember it because it was so weird, right?
I don't know if I'd say it was the biggest one, though.
Not the
biggest one in this bunch.
No. I'm saying the one that's featured the most in this.
Oh, yeah. He's kind of the headliner.
He's the thing that ties it all together. So not all of this was a cartoon, right?
He's the Garloo that holds everything together.
Oh, wow. I see what you did there. But RoboForce, Biker Mice from Mars, Sectars, Power Lords. These were all cartoons that basically got buried by something else at the time that was just a little more kick-ass. Like RoboForce came out and kids went, I don't know, that's kind of neat. And then a week later, Transformers landed. And everybody went, fuck off, RoboForce.
Yeah, Power Lords was an attempt to it was capitalize on the popularity of He-Man.
Yep.
Nobody gave a shit.
Nobody cared. Biker Mice from Mars, I'll let you guess.
Sure.
You know.
They're young, they have attitudes.
Right.
They are all animals.
Sectars,
they're all the same animal.
They were bug people. What else do you kids need? Come on.
Sure. People, mutants of all kinds.
So Oni is working with Nacelle on the Nacellverse. They have combined all these titles, and they are relaunching some new cartoons. There's a new RoboForce that's coming.
Oh, they're making cartoons too?
Yes, and it's the people that brought you the cartoons that made us and the toys that made us are producing these cartoons.
Oh, that's right. I did see that.
Yes.
That the Nacellverse was those guys.
Yes. And there's some fun meta takes on stuff. We'll talk about it in a minute here, but this is Nacellverse number 0 from Oni. It's 66 pages for $5.99, written by Melissa Flores. Cover A is by Marco D'Alfonso, and the art is by 4 different artists. You've got Ramat Handoko, Roald Marcellus, Francis Portela, and Diogenes Neves. Now, I will say, for a comic with 4 artists, we bitch about art changes mid-comic often. When it makes sense, that's one thing. When it's like, it's a flashback, so a different artist is doing it. But when obviously, like, this artist couldn't finish, so we got someone with a completely different style to come in, and it's this violent art change. These guys work together so well.
They mesh together.
I couldn't.
And there's a reason for the art change because it's
it's only
you said it already. It's sectars. It's
right. They're different planets where stuff
Biker
is
Mice.
happening.
It's Garlu. It's
Even those art changes are really subtle, though. Really subtle.
Yes. But the art does the different styles meld together very well. There's no violent shifts or anything.
The colors here are by Yao Canola, and the letters are by Ghost Glyphs Taylor Esposito.
Look at Taylor getting all uppity.
We got a new gang on the scene, a new letterer gang.
It's just one guy. Taylor Esposito is Ghost Glyph.
I don't know. He might be putting together a gang. Here's your solicit. RoboForce, Biker Mice from Mars, Sectars, Power Lords, and many more. The Nacellverse starts now in a double-sized 48-page zero-issue spectacular. Should mention there is a Cowboys from New Mesa guest star.
There's a reference.
Yeah, there's a
cameo.
reference. Yeah, a little cameo, which is fun. When his planet is annihilated by cosmic disaster, the alien Great Garlu must begin a galaxy-spanning search for a new home, only to discover a bold new universe of champions waiting amongst the stars. From the genetically modified sectar warriors of planet Symbion to the rabble-rousing biker Mars from Mars, Garlu's quest for a safe haven will hurtle him on a one-way collision course towards 22nd century Earth, where the obsolete robotic work crew called RoboForce is about to forge a new destiny. I love the meta aspect of it. Like the RoboForce got their ass kicked, folks. They admit it.
So there's a title page or kind of a recap page, so to speak. It's not really a recap, but there's an intro page before the action gets going that describes each of these properties. And at first, I was very confused how they were all going to tie together because it says it's the year 2089 and RoboForce.
Right.
RoboForce was trying out to become the heroes of Earth for whatever, and they didn't get it. And now they're janitors and shit.
Yeah.
And
they're dumb robots, to be fair.
Right. And then the next one was Sectars, and it said centuries ago on the planet Symbion, blah, blah, blah. And so in my mind, I'm just like, well, hold on. They all take place at different time periods, but they don't.
They don't.
The entire book takes place in the RoboForce year of 2089.
Yes.
And it's just that it was centuries ago that the people of the planet Symbion were turned into bugs.
Correct.
Bug people.
Yes.
So I thought it was very wise to tie it all to that 1 year because you know that the rest of them probably didn't have specific.
No. So, I mean, and whatever. Yeah. It's the future or whatever. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Melissa Flores worked on Power Rangers and the Dead Lucky, 2 books we both liked. Diogenes Neves, Realm of X, Suicide Squad. I'm sure you recognize that name. Francis Portela has worked on Green Lantern, Faith. This is their introduction to all these new books. It's sort of like what we just read with the Ghost.
The Ghost Machine one shot.
Ghost Machine one shot. Only
this is a primer for the Nacellverse relaunch.
Right. Only unlike that Ghost Machine one shot, which is just like, here's a few pages of this book. Here's a few pages of this book.
Yeah. Here's 3 short stories and some handbook stuff.
This is all tied directly together through Garlu. He's the vehicle for the plot. He's trying to investigate.
I have to say, this is one lengthy story with 4 completely different ideas. And the continuity between all 4 is seamless.
Yeah, it's really good. Like they worked.
She does a great job.
They really thought about this, and not just that. Garlu, who's a ridiculous green alien with a cute face and a beautiful singing voice, I guess.
I did like that part.
Yeah. He learns about himself as he goes to each planet. Like he goes to Sectars and he learns yes, there really is good and evil out in the universe. And there's people that are doing it the right way and people that are doing it the wrong way. And then the biker mice from Mars, he learns, well, there's shades of gray too. And you can't just trust everybody,
Right. He thought he made a friend and the friend ended up being a sleazebag.
But even that
friend learned harsh lessons, right?
Yeah. Taught him some stuff, hey, your identity is not just about where you're from. It's who you are. And he's like, you're a really special little guy and people like you.
It's so sweet. It's so sweet and so sad.
Yeah, it kind of is. And I kind of really enjoyed this.
So did I, Matt.
It wasn't what I thought it was going to be at all. The art was pretty decent. And like we said, all the artists work together seamlessly. It's very animated in tone. This is for a younger audience. I think they say teen plus, but come on.
I would say, TV 14 or whatever they would say, right?
Yeah. Right. Like we were saying, the Oni Nacellverse, it seemed like it was going to be a desperate commercial for a toy line that probably never takes off and some cartoons that'll only get seen online. But these creators took the job very seriously. They put out an entertaining introduction to each new property, and these properties are all getting their own comic books, starting with RoboForce #1.
Well, but not Garlu. The four big names: the Power Lords, Sectars.
Yeah. They're all
Biker
getting,
Mice from Mars and RoboForce.
I hope Garlu's around. He's super
titles.
cute, and he's just such a sweet little guy.
I loved Garlu.
Yeah. Look, I was going to give this a Skim It because it's like, realistically, I'm not going to read anymore. I'm just not. It's not for me. It's for younger audiences and stuff. But honestly, this is a buy it. They did a great job on this, despite what we all thought it was going to be. This is a buy it.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I totally agree. I read this today about an hour before we recorded, and I got through it, and I could not believe that I not only liked it, but I actually connected emotionally to the story. Like sometimes when you read a ton of comics, sometimes you just read a comic and you're like, yeah, that was good. And then sometimes you read a comic and you're like, oh man, like invested in the character's journey. Like I really cared about what was going on with Garlu.
I kind of did too. Like you couldn't
Melissa
help it.
Flores.
She did a great job.
And the way that he goes from one group to another, and they're all distinct, different environments, and then he finally settles on Earth where RoboForce lives. This comic book is good.
It was. You can't fight it. This is a good comic book.
I know. And again, like you, I probably won't bother reading the individual series because I was never into any of these properties.
No, nobody was. That's the thing. They're kind of forgotten.
That's the whole point, right?
And beloved because of it. They're this weird culty stuff, you know.
So they have a cult following, and I'm just not part of the cult.
Yeah.
But this comic is a great primer for what they're doing. It's very well told. The art's decent. It does get a little dicey, but the four artists play together very, very well. This is a buy it for me. I hated it before I even looked at it, and I was wrong.
Judge Joe over here. You know,
I was wrong. I judged the book. Not by its cover, but I read what it was and I'm like, no, thanks.
The cover's kick ass.
And Matt made me read it. Our sacred CLB duties are almost fulfilled, but before we're returned to the Ziggurat, we each need to pick which of these comics enters the THN permanent collection. And did we find a new respect for comic book cartoon adaptations?
I'll say this is the nicest I have been to a group of comics in the Cosmic Longbox in recent memory, I think.
There's only one of the 8 we read, only one of them I thought was legitimately bad.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's just a different job, and it's not something that we read a lot. But in doing so, when you dig into 4 of these and see, like, there's different ways to do it. Directly adapt it, or do like what they did in Space Ghost, where you take it and put a new idea on it, right? I mean, Batman is still a direct adaptation. It's just a story that...
It's an original story.
Yeah, it's an original story.
Space Ghost is a complete departure because the character's something of a blank slate.
Yeah. If I have to pick one of these, I mean, without a doubt, it's the Batman Adventures. Of course.
It's Batman, yeah. Batman Adventures.
That book is just stunning. But, I mean... I'm not taking anything away from Space Ghost or even that new Gargoyles or even this Nacellverse book. Like, I can't. They were good.
I think there are things to recommend about all of them except Cops. Cops is bad.
Yeah. Cops was legit bad, but Cops was also, it was a bad product that was just farted out.
Cops is, I mean, the toys are kind of weird and crappy. The cartoon is only fun on a surface level because you love superheroes or G.I. Joe or whatever, but it's not a good show.
It was a cash grab. Sorry, Bart Spears. Sorry.
But the rest of these, like, man, this was a fun theme.
You know what? As much as I love Bart Sears, and I do love Bart Sears, I don't go out there and get Bart Sears to create your next hot kids toy line.
If your toy line is supposed to be deformed monsters, then sure, maybe Bart Sears.
Yeah, maybe.
But human people, human men and women, maybe give it a hard pass.
Yeah. Joey, as we rematerialize in the THN Sanctum Sanctorum, it's time to make our must-read picks for next week. But first, let's give the nerds an exciting preview of the comics hitting the shelves next Wednesday, April 10th. Deadweight's #1 follows two henchmen buddies just trying to make their way henching in a crazy, crazy world. Cullen Bunn's Body Bag #1 from Massive ships in an actual zipped bag and features a comic about one of 4 new monsters of his creation. You don't know which one you're getting. It's a blind bag.
Weird.
Right?
Kind of into it.
Dynamite launches their Disney licensed comics with Hercules #1. Seems like a strange choice, but I mean, all right, whatever. And Boom is reprinting the Marvel Comics adaptation of Jim Henson's Labyrinth. So Disney getting that money next week one way or another. But like, do we care? Is Labyrinth like that comic book adaptation like beloved? Am I missing something here?
It's weird. Like, it's interesting.
Sure,
like
the movie was weird,
they went
too.
all in. Like, I had Labyrinth #1, and so
Okay.
like I know like they got some name comic artist to draw it, and
Fair enough.
it's is it beloved? I can't say.
Well, Joe, the good news is you can learn to draw the boyfriends from the webtoon original Boyfriends, a comic about getting yourself multiple boyfriends, all in the pages, in the art of boyfriends.
Multiple boyfriends? I can't even handle one boyfriend.
Yeah, but I know you can't resist a bunch of good-looking boys, Joe Patrick. So I'm pretty sure I know which art book you're going to be studying this week.
It's so true. It's so true. Yeah, the Labyrinth comic had breakdowns by John Buscema and finishes by Romeo Tanghal, and both of those guys were huge names.
I mean, sure, Marie Severin
obviously
is a
John
huge
Buscema.
name too, and she worked on Alf, but we're not reprinting that, so I don't know.
Look, man, I don't know. I think that Labyrinth has a pretty big following.
Okay, all right.
My pick for next week is Action Comics 1064. It's from DC. It's written by Joshua Williamson with art by Rafa Sandoval. It's 40 pages for $4.99. Here's your solicit. We're taking a break on that Superman Superstars nonsense because it's time for the House of Brainiac. House of Brainiac Part 1, Brainiac Attacks. Brainiac's Lobo army invades Metropolis in an action-packed, oversized issue.
What? A Lobo
The Super
army?
Family... Yes.
Okay.
The Super Family and all the heroes of Metropolis join the fight, but will they be enough to hold off Brainiac's lethal and crazed soldiers? Can Superman and Lex learn what Brainiac is searching for? He's not bottling Metropolis, so what is he collecting instead? So, Brainiac, House of Brainiac is the first big family-wide crossover, Superman family-wide crossover of this kind of new era of creators.
Okay.
So, like the Joshua Williams Superman book, the new Action Comics, Power Girl. Yeah, I'm excited for it. They've been teasing it since the beginning of Dawn of DC. Don't you remember the timeline? They had the timeline and had some things in shadows at the end.
That feels like it was
and there
6
was like
years
a Brainiac
ago. I don't
tendril.
know. God, seriously feels like 6 years ago.
It was
My
maybe
God.
2 years ago.
Maybe.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this era of Superman, and I'm excited for the return of Brainiac. I love Raph Sandoval. I love Joshua Williamson.
All right.
What's not to love?
Well, good news. If you're a Cullen Bunn fan, not all of his books will be blind bagged next week. And my pick is Monsters Are My Business and Business is Bloody, #1 from Dark Horse, written by Cullen Bunn with art by Patrick Piazzalunga. It's 32 pages for $3.99. Here's your solicit. Meet Tanner Grizz Grissom, along with a shrewd necromancer who wants him dead and a chainsaw-wielding koala bear named Cuddles as he wages a bloody war against nightmares from beyond time and space. It's thankless work, but someone has got to do it. And when a group of government contractors go missing in the nightmare landscape of the flooded zone, Grizz stumbles into a mystery he may not be able to carve his way out of. His old biker pals, the Howling Gargoyles, are up to no good, and the memories might be too much for Grizz to handle. This looks like it's going to be fun for fans of The Goon, which we were just talking about not too long ago.
Oh, yeah. It's
right?
got Goon vibes, yeah.
The art is beautiful. I don't know who Patrick Piazzalunga is, but you're going to see more of this name. He's very talented.
Excited to read it. The THN must-read trade for next week is The Enfield Gang Massacre from Image Comics. It's written by Chris Condon with art by Jacob Phillips. It's 200 pages for $16.99. And here is your solicit. A Western that is as haunting as it is thrilling, the Enfield Gang Massacre tells the dark origin of that Texas Blood's Ambrose County, as only Jacob Phillips and Chris Condon can. Montgomery Enfield and his gang of outlaws find themselves in the crosshairs of an aging Texas Ranger in a newborn county that's hungry for law by any means necessary. This collects the Enfield Gang Massacre 1 through 6, aka the complete series. So this is a spin-off of That Texas Blood, a book that Matt has raved about on a number of occasions. If you love that book, The Enfield Gang Massacre is for you. If you don't love that book, what's wrong with you? Get on it.
This book was on a ton of people's best of 2023 list. I am ashamed that I did not read it. It is supposed to be absolutely excellent. And the art is stunning. Stunning.
This is like the 1883 to That Texas Blood's Yellowstone.
Okay, if you say so.
I mean, kind of.
Yeah, sure. I'll buy it. I'll give it to you.
So this is a spin-off of That Texas Blood, a book that Matt has raved about on a number of occasions. If you love that book, The Enfield Gang Massacre is for you. If you don't love that book, what's wrong with you? Get on it.
Want to know what else is coming out next week, nerds? Join our Discord. We post the new Comic Book Day shipping list. We host all kinds of new comic talk. And, of course, beautiful boyfriend drawing tutorials. The important stuff, right? And be sure to pre-order these picks so you can read along with us next week. We're going to review them on our new comics show. I don't know if you're aware that we do that, but it is a thing we do. Every other week we switch.
There's a new comic show, and often when on it, we review new comics.
It is true.
Excelsior!
That is it for THN 737. Next time, new comic reviews return to the show, and we're going to give you a sneak peek of our Patreon extra. Not really sure what we're doing just yet, but we got some things brewing.
We need to figure it out before Saturday so we can get back on that recording schedule.
I agree. Join us for the THN Gang Hang on Saturdays. And we do that at 11 o'clock Central, typically right after we record the extra. Check out our Discord for details. Joe Patrick, what else can a mild-mannered nerd do at the THN ZIGGURAT Discord?
Well, speaking of boyfriends, you can discuss the suddenly dateable Dead Boy Detectives and marvel at the reported casting of Ozark's Julia Garner as the Silver Surfer. In our Nerd TV on Film channel, we're going to have to discuss that for sure on Saturday.
I'll tell you what, I don't think that was even in the betting odds.
There's a bingo card of all the news things you might see in a year, and that was on a completely different game.
Fair.
News. You can laugh at the never-ending train wreck that is the Suicide Squad video game launch, or...
heard it's a mess.
It's not good, dude. Or maybe you just want to discuss our question of the week. This week's question was inspired by last week's query from Brian Domingos. What are your comic book green flags? Comics that, when someone lists them as their favorite, make you think, yeah, this guy gets it.
Yeah, they're okay,
We're going to throw Dingo an honorary Goocher status for giving us the alley-oop for this question. He did not submit an actual third question. I'm being very generous. That's not really how the Goocher works, and I expected Matt to fight me on it.
Yeah, I'm fighting you. I'm telling you, no, doesn't count. Absolutely not. There is
my vote counts for 2. So.
No, you are a Goocher or you are not a Goocher. That is how it works, period.
He's an honorary Goocher. No. Brian, you're a Goocher in my heart, and that's really all that matters. Please keep your question of the week suggestions coming and sign up for our Discord with the link at twoheadednerd.com/Discord. We'll talk about your answers on this week's Gang Hang. We promise. Sometimes we forget, but we're trying.
We did it last week.
If you don't dig on Discord, send an MP3 submission for the Comic Pushers, for Ask a Nerd, or for whatever, to twoheadednerd@gmail.com, and we will put you on the show. That's a promise.
If you're new to this show and you're calling Bart Sears right now to tell him what you heard, I assure you, you just haven't heard enough. We like Bart Sears.
I swear we love him.
The good news is you can hear the entire run of THN in our digital Longbox archive at twoheadednerd.com. THN is a listener-supported podcast. It wouldn't be possible without the generosity of donors like our patron and occasional gaming buddy, Mr. John Bunger. Let me tell you, old friend of mine, and there's nothing I love more than when old friends pay me money to be my friend. Okay? That's how you show love. If you
We will still be your friend even if you don't pay us money, John.
we'll see about that. If you like
I'll
what you
still be
hear
your
every
friend,
week,
John.
it's easy to support the show. You can sign up to be a patron at patreon.com/2headed nerd.
Before we go, our weekly shout out goes to veteran comics artist Mark D. Bright, aka MD Bright, or sometimes Doc, who passed away suddenly on March 27th at the age of 68. Speaking of his friend and frequent collaborator, writer Christopher Priest described Bright as, quote, an extraordinarily talented painter, cartoonist, comics artist, and musician. In addition to co-creating the cult favorite Quantum and Woody with Priest, which is a favorite from me and Matt.
Oh, yeah.
Their collaborations marked the first times that Superman, Wonder Woman, Spider-Man, and Wolverine were written and drawn by African-American creators. Bright also worked on iconic runs of Green Lantern and Iron Man, where he drew the legendary Armor Wars storyline. Rest in power, Doc. You will always be one of my favorites.
Too many losses this week. It sucks, man. Until next time.
This has been a sad and weird week.
Yeah. Until next time, true believers, remember to pre-order your comics or your retailer might just steal your multiple boyfriends. This is the Two-Headed Nerd signing off.
They can have them. Boyfriends are too much work.
Yeah, pain in the ass. Don't get me started.